Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have a sharp game to share with you from 1992. On the white end, Judit Polgar playing against Benko. Alright, this is a 15-year-old Polgar. Caro-Kann defense on board. And with c4, we enter the Panov-Botvinnik Attack. Let's get some more development in. On this move 7, Polgar takes on d5, and only then plays bishop d3. If you play bishop d3 first, black can take on c4, and then the bishop is pulled off of this diagonal. Polgar's idea here, resolve the tension, and only then play bishop d3. It gets to stay on this diagonal now. An isolated queen-pawn position, typical in the Panov-Botvinnik attack. Some more development, sensible move, half-open file, and now some pressure on d4. How to address this? In the game, it's bishop e4. If instead of bishop e4, you play, let's say, h3. Let's say you picked this moment to flick in your flight square. Black wouldn't be chopping away on d4. In the end, white would have a sacrifice on h7, getting the material back. The move black would have here is knight d to b4, and now one of two things will happen. Black will be able to exchange knight for light square bishop, or now win the d4 pawn. There are 3 attackers on it. Black's ready to chop away with the minor pieces. So bishop e4 sidesteps, we might say, knight d to b4 with tempo. This move would now be silly, kicked right away, and it would have to return to d5. All right, from here, black plays queen d6. Computer isn't so much a fan of queen to d6. It has a preference for knight c to e7, really keying in on the d5 square. This is the main square for black to keep control over. Don't have to worry about any isolated pawn advancing if you keep control over d5. And follow-up moves for black may include this maneuver right here, now that c6 is opened up. And one final point, this queen knight can easily now assist in defending the kingside. Should there be pressure along this diagonal, a battery pointing at h7, knight g6 can be a nice defensive resource. Okay, in this game, it is queen d6, maybe with an eye, now on a knight jump to f4. Follow up here is a3, cutting out any knight jump to b4. Notice if white, let's say, says, you know what, I don't want to have just this isolated pawn. Let's convert this position to a ram structure. If white takes on d5 here, this would significantly help black playing this d4, d5 ram structure. How can white be better in a position like this? Black would, in fact, in the end, have a lead in development. Already has a direct connection between the rooks, and there's already a lot of pressure here on team white. d4 square is ready to collapse. So this is not the way forward. This would really solve, we might say, black's problem. Black's problem here is the light square bishop. If we do a piece-by-piece comparison, this is the one that sticks out most. The biggest difference here is between the light square bishops. The white light square bishop is a contender for best piece. This guy, not having a fun time. Okay, in this game it is a3. Black plays a6 here. Computer prefers b6. Much quicker to get the bishop on the main diagonal. I guess in a way, black is saying, I want to extract a little bit more out of the b pawn. Prefer to go 2 steps and only then bishop b7. This turns out to be a bit on the slower side. All right, a6 it is. Bishop c2 now, paving the way for this battery where the queen is the leader, looking for mate on h7. Additionally, e4 is now vacant for knight e4. And we're ready to track down the dark square bishop. Follow up from here, knight takes knight. No, knight takes e4 now. From here, black plays g6. It's preferring to play b5 here, consistent follow-up to a6, but we do have g6 here. This is already anticipating the pressure, the battery pressure, queen on d3, pointing at h7. This does create two big weaknesses, so very instructive from this point by Polgar here, how to take advantage of these dark squares. Well, let's see. She first plays a4. So threatening a skewer now. Black plays rook d8 here. It's out of the skewer. Computer prefers queen c7 instead. This also factors in a possible fork on e4, playing queen to c7. Okay, rook d8 in this position. Now, it may be tempting at this moment to say to yourself, you know what, an appealing move in general is to develop a piece with tempo. Bishop a3 would do just that. If you play, however, bishop a3 here, queen c7, and black kind of says, so what? Your bishop's staring off into space. This is not the best diagonal for the dark square bishop. A reason to stay trained on this natural diagonal, well, it's already pointing at a big weakness, h6. The idea here is to now play knight to g5. Knight e4 is now right around the corner. Black cannot afford to allow a knight for dark square bishop exchange, to be sure. This guy right here, especially with g6 in, is black's most important piece. Covers the dark squares, goes to g7 here. Knight e4 still. And now this square here is clearly the focal point. Bishop g5. Gets there with tempo. What do you do now? Very difficult position for black to play. Rook d5. Instructive moment here. Let me throw this one to you as a pop quiz. How would you reply? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, knight f6 here is tempting, but not best. In the game, queen d2 is played. Notice, if you rush in here with knight f6, this bishop can immediately be challenged with queen f4. And if you really want to keep the bishop here, you would have to play queen to f3. It still prefers white here. This is still a pesky piece, but black is not going to be getting mated now that the queens are off the board. Queen d2 on this move 19 prevents this follow-up queen f4 idea. There's no stopping knight to f6. That can wait. Queen d2 first. Knight a5. Now we have knight f6. Knight for bishop exchange right around the corner. Mate in 2 threat. That's defended. And there's also a threat on h2. That too is defended. Super purposeful. We have a flight square, even though it's, for the moment, defended with the queen. It's still considered flight square. Perfect piece, the bishop on f6. Number 1 piece in the game. Not so easy to extract the dark square bishop. All right, from here, knight c4. Stays trained now on this diagonal. White has an idea to kick this rook away. Knight d6. You could play g4, or the move in the game, rook to e5. Both allow the queen access to h6. Rook takes, rook follows. Bishop takes, rook is played here. You could also take with the pawn. Polgar takes with the bishop. There is a pin. Black's out of it right away. Now looking at a mate in 1. Knight e8 is played here to defend the mate. If f6 is played here, we're going to have a look at f6 in a few cases here. Let's check out f6 instead of knight to e8. In response to f6, there would be a sacrifice on g6. If black takes the light square bishop here, would turn out to not even really be a sacrifice. It would be a bishop versus 3 pawns position. The attack continues. Passer, still time to invite another attacker into the mix. If black goes in a different way after this capture on g6, taking the dark square bishop, here's one path you can take to get the material back with still a winning attack. There we go. White is in fact up material now. Okay, f6, not a good idea. Knight e8 here. Rook e1. In the game, bishop d7 is played. If we once more look at f6 here, this bishop captures g6 is still available. Pawn captures bishop could be met with a mate in 2 in this case. And if you take the light square bishop, this is how you can continue. This rook lift to e3 at this moment right here is very good. We're ready to take on f6, play rook f3, and if black takes on e5 here, we could insert the check. And notice here, rook f7, black actually would escape. We are down in this position 2 minor pieces. Best at this point would be a queen check. After a knight block, you can take the knight, and then a pawn. The attack continues. 2 major pieces. Completely underdeveloped here, Team Black. And if the king goes to d7, we're going to win the queen shortly with a check. Queen takes queen next. Okay, this shot is still there after f6. Bishop d7 here. Rook e3. We don't have to look at f6 in this case. If we look at these last 2 moves, this is only 1 step closer. Rook e3 is 1 step closer to the rook f3 move. Bishop d7 is nowhere closer to helping defend the kingside. Follow up now after queen e7, h5, queen f8. Now we could look at f6 here. The queen is a bit more defensive on e7 rather than d8. If f6 though, we're capturing away on g6. And if black takes the bishop here, this is actually an important line. Taking here would end up being a draw. Best would be to simply recapture on e5. We can afford to simply recapture, box out the knight. This attack is still here with the queen, rook, bishop, and g6 pawn. There's actually a funny line here where if black tries to defend with queen g7, check this one out. There'd be pawn takes pawn now. And this slick little move, rook g3, saying you take my queen, and we're going to have a mate on g8. Okay, f6, still no good. In the game, queen f8. If queen f8 is played with this rook already on h3, there'd be a beautiful finish. I want to highlight this. So let's say instead bishop c6 and rook h3 are first included, and then black plays queen f8. Check out this finish. We'd have a queen sacrifice on h7, only move, double check, only move, and then mate, corner pocket. Okay, that's not too far off from being a possibility. All right, on this move 29, it's queen f8, preserve the queens. Now what's going to happen after f6? We get to see it finally in this game. H takes g6. If you take the bishop, we're going to have a typical deflect the defender. King takes, the king can't take the pawn if the king goes to the corner, losing the queen. And if king to g7, we're going to have a check. Queen takes queen next is mate. So poison bishop. Pawn takes pawn. Bishop takes pawn. And from here we have queen g7. If you take the bishop here, yet again, deflect the defender. Bishop h7 check. And we're getting the queen soon enough. King g7, rook g3, queen takes queen. Okay. Poison bishop, queen g7 here, rook g3. This bishop now captured, but after move 34, pawn captures pawn. Black simply resigns. There's no rush here. You can wait to move the bishop. Next up, bishop captures knight, winning the queen. Completely boxed out knight. Rook never ended up moving. Bishop, how much better is it on d7 than its home square? Completely underdeveloped. This is game over. Just to put on one move, let's say the king gets off of the same file as the rook. Bishop f7 is considered best. Looking next at now a queen getting to the h file. And if black defends that, here's one slick finish, very forcing continuation. All only moves here, black's replies are all only moves. Rook g8, queen takes rook, check on h6, f8, and we see the point having the bishop on f7, queen g8 is mate. All right, in this one, after the simple recapture on e5, black throws in the towel. So, what did you think of this one? Feel free, as usual, to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care. Bye.